All right, my name's Kevin Kane,
And my name's John Kim.
and we're doing our presentation on the article for CEOs, It's a Whole New Job. So, over the past 10 years, CEOs have been experiencing longer tenures and are seeing their pay increase annually. But with that, they're now expected to take stances on social issues such as climate change. And social media has put a spotlight on the day-to-day decision making of modern CEOs. Examples of this are like the Facebook privacy issues, and Harley Davidson had a lot of backlash for deciding to produce more offshore.
So this whole issue of social issues, environmental issues, governmental issues is becoming more important.
Absolutely.
Yep. And now some of the social issues, people are expecting the top executives to use their power to push social agendas. The problem with this is that it could like split their customers. Like some might agree with it, some might not.
Can you maybe give an example of that?
Like say on gun control. Like if they want stricter gun control, but a large portion of their customers are in favor of deter them from doing business with them.
That's a good
And
example.
later on in the slide, it talks about Dick's Sporting Goods ceasing sale of firearms. And in the article, it talks about how Ed Stack, when he was making the decision, he knew that there was going to be a large opportunity cost with people, with existing buyers already purchasing firearms. And although they were estimated to lose about $45 million in sales, he thought it was still a worthwhile thing to stand on his values.
That's good.
Yep. And then
Okay, good.
so the trust barometer from Edelman, it basically just like ranks the trustworthiness according to the respondents. And in the year 2019, corporations are ranked as more trustworthy than government and media. And with that, 3/4 of the respondents say that CEOs need to take a stand against the wage gap, discrimination, climate change, and sexual harassment. And back in 2010, this was expected more of government officials and analysts than corporations, but times have changed. And John already discussed the Dick's Sporting Goods.
Yeah. How do you think a CEO who might make $50 million a year addresses the wage gap when the average person in his firm makes $12 an hour? Or 15, let's say $15 an hour, which is $30,000 a year. How do you think does that seem like there's too big of a gap?
I mean,
I think while it's important to address the pay gaps between CEOs and maybe the people at the very bottom tier of the company, I think this is just another example of what the article was talking about, but didn't really have time to go into, where CEOs are being almost pushed into like group thinking, where they have to like turn into like CEOs, where Mark Zuckerberg and a bunch of other CEOs kind of pledge themselves to, and then rely solely on shares for their salary.
Yeah, that's probably a good way of doing it, isn't it? Share performance.
all right, and people aren't as motivated by money as they used to be. They want more out of their employers. They want to feel cared about. This is a quote from the CEO of United Shore, Matt Ishiba. They're not going to care about it the way that I do, so I have to show that I care about them as much as I care about the business. And this United Share Mortgage, they built a new headquarters with several services for their employees, such as like a grocery store, fitness center, so that they don't have to do like a lot of running around outside of work. They can get it done there when they're leaving. And he also implemented this feedback system called Your Time, where basically the employees get regular feedback on their performance, and they can in turn give feedback to management on their performance.
Not just once a year, but on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, it's regularly.
Okay. Let's go back to, maybe you're going to cover this. I'll go back one then. Go back one slide. What other things, I mean, motivate you? What other things could motivate you as an individuals? There's money. What else could go in there? Yeah, nice offices. What other things would you put in that category that would motivate you?
We slightly go into it a little bit later, but just for example, from a previous example to help explain it better, like if we see our CEO taking $0 in salary or $1 in salary in exchange deciding that the rest of their salary is going to be purely off of their shares, we know that their dedication to the company is at the highest level, and it talks about in the article where the CEO can't expect the lowest ranked people to care about the company as much as they do. So it's up to the CEO to show that those people still matter to them as much as the business does.
Good point. Yeah, I think you're going to actually see that in reflection 2 and 3. It actually goes through one example where you're going to have to sort of figure out what are the key drivers, so to speak, for you when it comes to internal, extrinsic, and intrinsic things. I think you'll be surprised. I know I am. I think one of the things is we all get paid, but I think when we think about it, we also like to have some career path. We want to feel that people care about us and appreciate us and thank us. But we want time. You know, we don't want to just work 60, 70 hours a week and not have time for other things. Would you agree that your time is valuable to you guys?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Even in the article, it talked about, I think the words they described incoming workers as were highly skilled young people specifically, and how it really became a switch where workers even 40, 50 years ago took jobs where they only wanted a salary in order to provide for their family, and then the rest of their time was dedicated to themselves, whereas now it's less about the money and minimum salary requirements, and it's more about what type of values does the company have? Can they really grow in that company? So that also just shows a big difference right now.
Okay, good.
All right, so sustainability has also become a top priority for companies in the United States, and since there are no really clear mandates forcing businesses to become more environmentally friendly, CEOs have to be proactive with their approach.
Okay.
So when we were looking at the key issues of the article, we wanted to tie it back into what the class has already learned so far. So when we look at the demographic shifts, one of the most interesting parts of it were when we look back, were from 1997 to the 2000s, there's an increase of people aged 20 to 64 by 2.3 million each year. But when they looked at the numbers for 2019, the increase of people was 480,000 people. So in the article, when it talked about these highly skilled young people increasing their demands and at the same time changing their demands, not only are they changing their demands, but it's a very niche and smaller amount of people. So the CEOs have to act not only quickly, but they also have to act demandingly. And in the article, it talks about how management styles a long time ago, they would just instantly say yes, give them the money, and just hope to move on. But they're finding that workers aren't responding to just salary bumps anymore.
I think I've seen that too. Used to be, you pay me more money, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And now I don't know about that. There's other things.
Absolutely, and this just ties into what we saw in when we were learning about the different management theories. We think that before, with the probably during around the time of more like the beginning and introduction of the assembly line, that it was really stressed the importance of more of a scientific management type theories or XY theories. But the trend we're seeing in today's workspace is more backed by the Hawthorne studies and W. Edwards Deming's theories in 14 points. And basically, the main transition, it's that the reason scientific management isn't as backed as much, it's that there isn't as much socio and psychological backing toward those, where it's really stressed in the Hawthorne studies.
Yeah.
And as we stated before, when we mean financial minimums are no longer the goal, it's that people aren't taking these jobs, these young skilled individuals aren't taking these jobs purely for a salary at this point. It's to increase themselves later on and thinking long term, instead of where businesses and even workers used to think in terms of like quarterly earnings reports and emphasizing the short term.
Yeah, okay.
And just an interesting point that they talked about was how, as we've seen in these sustainability responsibilities, taking care of employees, social issues, the basic trend was that the article almost described that today's top CEOs are almost seen as elected officials in NGOs a long time ago, and that the expectations for them are just significantly higher.
Okay.
In terms of some solutions, we thought that the switch to a workplace that is more backed by Hawthorne-style studies was probably one of the best solutions that could not only tackle demographic changes, but the rate of technological change as well. One of the examples in the articles was how people wanted to find value in companies and similar values, but we noticed that CEOs, they can't just stress out or put out the same values as each other. They really need to be differentiating and really unique in terms of values, or else the employees have a hard time really finding a difference between their values and how it connects with the company.
Yeah, values become important, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the article, the way they wanted to summarize it was that in terms of how this changes in long-term versus short-term quarterly earnings, or like just short-term goals in general, the general change was that you can't plan out years in advance. You can't plan out 4 or 5 quarters in advance. There really needs to just be some type of framework with a clear goal, and then other than that, you need to be able to move and advance and change with the technology as well.
Excellent.
Although there are a bunch of clinical studies, research-backed solutions, this was just one of the most recent papers to come out that was in the Wall Street Journal and in the New York Times. It was some research conducted at Oxford University, where over 5 years of studies, they calculated people's happiness and the correlation between happiness and productivity. And what they found was there was, when people self-reported as being more happy, they had 13% more sales weekly. They increased their calls per hour. They reported as more fatigued when unhappy, and a feeling of less connection to the company, or less connection to the values of the company when unhappy. And we just thought this was one of the best examples, seeing as how it not only spanned short studies of months, but they also went back to the same people after 5 years.
And how this impacts us is with more and more companies adapting to this management approach, future employees might have to choose between a company who cares about its workers and social issues, or a company who does not as much but might be able to pay more. And in my opinion, it's worth the small pay cut to work for a company that truly cares about you and your goals, as well as important social issues.
And when we were thinking about how this really impacts future workers, we discussed it, and the main reasoning behind our decision was that in the end, in order to benefit both us and the company, we want to make the decision that gives the company the greatest competitive edge while still helping us. And we think that seeing correlations between productivity and happiness, and really seeing ourselves in the company in the long term, that's going to be the best decision for us.
Excellent. Very thorough. You guys give me hope that the future of how business is run will will follow some of these things. So very, very good job. I think it was very well done. It was a very relaxed conversation too. So thank you very much.
Thank you so